All right, we're flowing. And you may notice there is no one else here but me. Um, Today is going to be a solo episode. Tara is unfortunately not doing so well. She's a little sick. Nothing long-term serious. I realize I made that sound a little morbid there, but she's not feeling well, and the likelihood of us getting together for an episode this week was pretty small, and didn't want to miss the opportunity to get an episode out, keep our run alive. And I've been thinking about doing this for a while anyway. The Alpha Health Report. I try to sprinkle in health when we're doing these podcasts, but I also appreciate it's not the real reason people show up, so I don't want to ever make it the thing. So I figured I'd do these Alpha Health Reports, maybe do it on another channel, maybe do it on here and kind of throw it out every few weeks or something. So I would love to know everybody's feedback. Tara doesn't know I'm doing this either, so hi Tara. I hope you're feeling better. Not saying that Tara's not feeling well and she got sick because her immune system's compromised because she's a vegan or anything. I would never say that. That's something I wouldn't say. But when you eat meat all the time like I do, you don't get sick as much. And that's mostly down to the high cholesterol that one gets when one eats a lot of saturated fats. And we're actually going to talk about that a little later in the episode. So forgive me if I'm trying to make this not feel like a rant. I really don't want to edit this so much and make it really like you see on YouTube or the jump cuts. I want it to just be a bit more free flowing. So you might see me looking at my notes. You might hear me pausing for a second. But I want to make this as normal of an episode as possible. And I figured what I would do is kind of just go through some of the myths in health. As I've talked about a lot, I have opened my own practice as a functional health practitioner, and one of the things I've really learned, and this happened before, because when you have a child with a disability, you go back to the drawing boards. Everything you did and everything you thought was the right thing to do, you kind of realize maybe you didn't make the right choices, and maybe the information you were given, the people that were advising you had and were given, wasn't the best, wasn't accurate. And I think it's a lot easier, and it's been my experience because I spend a lot of time in the communities talking with people who have been dealing, multiple decades of their children who have suffered from autism. And I say suffered because there is a very large population, about 20-25% of children with autism who are nonverbal, still wear diapers, are never going to be independent. And they kind of get dismissed because there's this spectrum of autism, and there are a lot of high functioning folks. And I think that's one of the issues, is that we made that spectrum too broad. I don't want to go into all of that. I think I will at some point, but today's episode is not going to be regarding that. But my point is, we've all had to realize that the consensus didn't work for our children, and it's becoming more and more apparent and more of a problem, as we're seeing 1 in 31 children now are diagnosed with autism. That's not normal, and I've said that before. So I say all of that to say, I really encourage people to challenge their own beliefs, to challenge the authorities that are telling them the information. There's a Stanford professor, I forget his name, that works with Andrew Huberman, and Huberman was saying on his podcast that this guy told him about 80 to 90% of the materials in the textbooks, or the materials that are being taught in medical schools, are inaccurate and out of date. So you've got people, large swaths of new generations of doctors coming through with out of date and just wrong information. And I don't blame those people. I don't blame the authorities. I don't blame the doctors and the practitioners. As I always say, you're only as good as the information you have at the time. But I encourage them to challenge their beliefs and their thoughts. And this is really what the crux of it comes down to. And I challenge everybody with this. I'm quite privy to, because of the circles I'm in, I'm privy to what's happening at the upper echelons of the government right now in terms of public health policy. And I worry that a lot of folks are dismissive because of the messengers, and I've talked about that before on social media. and there will be information coming out, things that people in my field have known for a long time. But there's information that will be coming out, and very not too dissimilar to what's just been revealed with Tylenol. Like, a lot of us knew that stuff already. It wasn't new to us. But my Lord, the backlash that there was just, it was disappointing and a little discouraging that when presented with new information, people weren't willing to challenge the beliefs that they have. And I keep using that word beliefs because I always say to people, do you believe that or do you know that? With something like a Tylenol, do you believe it can be harmful, or do you believe that it's safe, or do you know? Do you believe the vaccines are safe, or do you know the vaccines are safe? And that word always gets you in trouble because people, oh, I can't challenge that belief. But the problem is, even if you were to ask licensed professionals, people with PhDs, when you really challenge them, they don't actually know. They just believe. It's what they've been told. It's what's been told to them, relayed to them by people they thought knew. And I'll say this. I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes. And none of this is conspiracy stuff. This is all publicly available data. And honestly, I've come away just terrified. Terrified for the future, terrified for our children, just because of the amount of corruption, the amount of deceit, the amount of lies, the amount of profit that people have chosen over people's health. And I just fear it's going to take so long to unwind it, so long to... I think it was Mark Twain who said it's easier to fool someone than to convince them they've been fooled. And I think that's what we're witnessing now, is that people have a hard time accepting that maybe they've been fooled. Maybe the information that they had about health was wrong. And I challenge you, I implore you to just please, for the sake of your family, sake of your children, if you have been blessed not to have a child diagnosed with a disability like I have, like my family has, number one, be grateful, and I'm so happy for you. But for their children, the risk for them developing a chronic disease is incredibly high now. So just be willing, be open-minded, be open-eared, be open-armed. Embrace people who are coming with a different perspective. Embrace new ideas. Don't just dismiss, because that seems to be people's reflex. And it's because, as I always talk about with radical ownership, people don't want to own their decisions. They don't want to own the fact that maybe they made a wrong choice. Maybe they put their trust in someone or an institution that lied to them, because it's painful. It's kind of no different to actually, I won't say that in case there are children listening. But it's kind of, it's like Santa Claus, right? It's upsetting as a child. But yeah, so I say all this just to say, really ask yourself, do I know this or do I believe it? Because there are a lot of things I know that are contrary to what I used to believe. I used to believe certain treatments, certain interventions were safe, when you realize actually they're not. And you know that because that's what the data says. I used to believe that things were bad for you, when actually now I know that they're not. And I am much healthier for that. So I just want to hammer that point home. Just accept that you don't know everything. Accept that the people you look to for information don't know anything. And that's one of the things I love about the functional health community, is that we all challenge each other. It's done in a respectful way. And take something like seed oils. I mean, I saw, and I'm going to talk about that a little later on, but I saw a great podcast with Dr. Saladino, who, even he's someone I really look up to, someone I really respect. He's always a very well-researched person, but he was on a podcast, it was a 3-hour long podcast talking about just health things. And him and the other guy he was talking to, Nick Sorto, I believe his name is, PhD, another very smart guy. They agreed on like 90% of stuff, but then they had this other 10% of things that they just had slightly different takes on. And it was just so interesting to hear all of that. And that kind of discussion is good. And it was done. They were sat right next to each other. There was no animosity. They called out when they agreed with each other. They also called out when they disagreed and what the data and information they had. And at one point, Nick even said to Paul, I'll send you that information. I'll send you that study. I was like, yeah, please do. I haven't seen that. I'd like to read through that. That's the kind of dialogue we need to be having, instead of dismissing, instead of, blocking any new information coming your way because it's not coming from the people you think should be telling that information. COVID should have been a big wake up call to a lot of people. It certainly was for me. And maybe I'm just saying that. Maybe there's it's a bit self-serving because I do come with contrarian views because of the information I know. And even just talking about that, how many people sit and listen to a 3-hour podcast, then go and look at some of the studies that were referenced after the fact? Not many people go that far, but that's the kind of thing I do. That's why I'm happy to sit in a position like this and talk about some things that are quite contrary to the popular beliefs. And like I said, I used to believe a lot of the things that follow that mainstream narrative, but now I know better. I know better. I don't believe, I know. So I implore you, just be open-minded and open-eared to all of the new information that's going to be coming out. And don't just believe it. Don't just accept it. It goes for both sides of an argument. Don't just believe something. Go and research it yourself. If you care enough to have that strong of an opinion that you're going to ostracize someone, that you're going to, go back and forth, start saying mean names and stuff, because that's what it always comes down to. If you're going to stand on that side of it, then you owe it to yourself to go and research the information and make sure that you actually know versus just believe it. Anyways, let's move on to the myths. This one's all of these are controversial when they shouldn't be. Myth number one is that cholesterol is the villain. And that's not true. Cholesterol is actually essential for life. Cholesterol is the building block. It's a precursor to hormones like testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, even vitamin D. You need cholesterol to make that. It gets villainized all of the time because of studies that show that high instances of heart attacks and high cholesterol. And the metaphor I've always found useful when trying to get my head around this, and again, this is something I've looked at for a long time, because my cholesterol was high. My LDL, the last time I tested it, was over 200. And they say your combined cholesterol shouldn't be more than 200. So I, of course, wanted to make sure that I actually was healthy, and turns out I am. And when you're looking at those lipid panels, the things you really want to look at are your HDL and triglyceride ratios. If that's healthy, then you're in pretty good shape. And I should, at this point, say everything I'm saying on this podcast, I'm not a licensed medical professional. Of course, I'm certified through many different agencies and whatnot. But this is not medical advice. Don't take what I'm saying. Go and research it yourself if it's something that you want to implement into your life or start forming as part of your outlook on health. Anyways, so high LDL was not a problem. And the metaphor that I've always found really useful is this idea that, you're blaming the fire truck that shows up to the scene for the fire that's there. All right. So you've got this plaque that's built up, it's ended up causing a heart attack. LDL is there to help fix the problem, help remove some of the plaque, bring some essential nutrients to the scene to help get rid of the blockage. And it just happens to be there, and you've ended up blaming them for the heart attack. And there have been plenty of studies to show that there is actually no correlation between atherosclerosis and high cholesterol. And in fact, there's a fantastic study that's just been, they've been dripping out the data for it that shows a zero correlation between plaque buildup and high cholesterol. So that's always one. And I get, when you are considering these kind of things when it comes to your health, always think about who is benefiting from this. I have members of my family on statins. I think it's one of the worst medications to be on because of all of the associated risks with dementia and things like that. While it does lower your cholesterol, it raises your risks in other areas. And it's that trade-off. Is that really worth it? In my mind, it's not. But who stands to gain from that? The statin industry is multi-billion dollar industry. So it pays for people to put you on statins, right? So just think about that. Because LDL is not bad cholesterol. It's really, I've heard some medical professionals refer it to as not even a cholesterol. It's basically like the bus that transports cholesterol, triglycerides and vitamins around the body where it's needed. The real problem that people have is high oxidation, I should say, and inflammation. This can damage LDL blood vessels, right? So again, it's LDL's at the scene of the crime, but does that mean that it was the problem? Does it mean, you're blaming the wood for the fire when it was really the spark that set the fire alight? That's the way you got to think about it. So I really recommend people do some research into this, and be open to the idea that maybe it's actually not that bad. And there've actually been associations with high life expectancy and high cholesterol. People who live longer actually have higher cholesterol. And something that's very personal to me is, my mother has, she was diagnosed with progressive supranuclear palsy in, I think it was 2020 or 2021. The symptoms were kind of starting to show a little bit before that, but it's a Parkinson's associated disease. And I'm, she's very young, and it's very sad. And something I consider all the time is, okay, how do I set myself up so that I don't end up in a similar position as her, right? I don't want to be that age when I'm sick and whatnot. And when you actually look at the data, low cholesterol was associated with things like dementia, with things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, depression, hormone imbalances. So why am I going to lower my cholesterol? And, Tara's sick right now. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't get sick that often. I think the last time I was sick was literally a year ago. It was in October. I remember it because it's the only time I've been sick in like 2 years. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that I have very high cholesterol because my immune system functions very well because of it. So cholesterol's not the bad guy. And I really hope people take some time to go and look into that. Reach out to me if you want some resources. I'm happy to share them with you. I don't want to go too kind of deep into the weeds of, the science behind it, because I just don't think that's productive for something like this. And it's not really my lane. My lane is, I think, and Tara even kind of said it herself when she messaged me the other day, I think my my gift, if you want to call it that, or my role in all of this this health overhaul, I call it, is I'm able to take knowledge from people and kind of put it in, quote unquote layman terms. And I think that's mostly because that's how I learn. It's not because I'm so smart, but it's just I'm able to understand what they're saying and then kind of put that in more easy to learn, easy to digest kind of material. So next up is filtered tap water is safe to drink. It's not. I hate to break it to you. I won't say the brand in case I get sued, but just a regular filter is not enough. It doesn't remove anywhere near the amount of chemicals or any of the shit that's in your water. They have found in municipal water, just think of this, a staggering amount of people are on antidepressants, birth control, blood pressure medication. When they pee, that all gets into the water system, and the filtering mechanisms that they use don't get rid of them. Same with heavy metals. We all know chlorine's in the water. We all know fluoride. We hear about that a lot, and we'll talk about that in a second. Those standard filters don't remove most. I think it's about 3% they get rid of. So it's still 90 something percent. I know 97%, but I'm not quite sure what the exact number is, but it's in the 90% that you're not removing the microplastics, you're not removing all of those pharmaceuticals, and you're not removing all of those forever chemicals, the heavy metals. So look for either reverse osmosis is great. I have a 3-stage filter that removes a large amount of all of that stuff. Nothing's really perfect. I mean, reverse osmosis is probably as perfect as you can get. But with that, you want to be careful. You want to remineralize the water, because minerals are actually what keep you hydrated. So we want to make sure that we're putting those into the system somehow. So, I always tell people that one of the easiest hacks you can have in terms of improving your health is to cut out the tap water. Buy bottled glass bottles, spring water. That gets very expensive, unfortunately, and it's crazy to me that we have to pay for water. It's an essential part of living, and it's really sad that we have to pay an exorbitant amount of money to have safe water. But yeah, so look for reverse osmosis. I'm happy to share as by water drop is the 3-stage system that removes fluoride, the chlorine, the PFAs, the forever chemicals, and fluoride in particular. It's a known neurotoxin. It's known to have an effect on your neurotransmitters. It's toxic to the brain, and it can cross the blood-brain barrier. So it's not good to be consuming it. And there's plenty of the science on it's been compressed. And actually, if you look at how it got into the water system, was there's a guy called Edward Bernays, who he's known as the father of propaganda. He's responsible for a lot of things we see and take as a fact these days, but it's actually not. And he was tasked with, all these chemical companies had fluoride was a byproduct, and they were like, we need to get rid of this stuff. So they convinced the towns and everybody to put it in the water systems under the guise that it helps your teeth, which it actually does. But it's a neurotoxin. So again, it's that risk reward. And it's not a conspiracy. Fluoride is known to be toxic. If you see vats of it anywhere, it's got, the big skull and crossbones on it. Is not good to consume. So find tap water that you can filter enough to get rid of that. Forgetting all the other stuff that's in there, the heavy metals and all of that. Fluoride is not good to consume. All right, this next one's a fun one for me. And this is one that a lot of people will disagree with me on. This idea of calories in versus calories out. Calories are not equal, number one. So the idea of being able to make a calculation as to the energy it's going to produce doesn't make sense to me. And if you actually look at how the idea of calories came about, it was, I forget the guy's name, but they were essentially put it into a calorimeter. They were burning it to see how much energy it produced. They burned the food to see how much energy it produced. And we're not a furnace. That's not how humans create energy. On a cellular level, that's not what happens. The food gets into your gut after being digested. And if you're not digesting properly, when the food gets to your gut's not able to absorb some of the as much in terms of nutrients as it would like to. So even right there, so say you've consumed 400 calories of let's say something high carb, high fiber, and it's not able to absorb all of that, then two people who have different digestion systems are going to get different amounts of energy from it. So your body's just going to poop it out without absorbing enough. And conversely, if you actually have an immobile gut, you're going to hold on to food for longer, and you're going to absorb more energy from it, perhaps, maybe, potentially. So, no one's digestive systems are the same. No one's gut flora is the same. People have different mitochondria efficiencies. No one is the same. So the idea that we can put a number on how much energy a food's going to potentially produce, it's never made sense to me. I don't count calories. I haven't for over a decade now. Quality of the food is the most important thing. unprocessed, good whole foods. I think primarily red meat. If you are a vegan or a vegetarian, then we're on the same, we're on the same wavelength. Whole, organic, grass-fed, grass-finished. If you're on the meat side of things, that's more important than calories. So, calories in, calories out has been something that's just also always bugged me. It's oversimplifying a very complex process, and it's very misleading. And you look at people who, really restrict calories, they always put weight back on afterwards, and because they just drive their metabolism down, they just make the mitochondria inefficient, they make their gut inefficient. It's discounting too much science for me. Too much of the gut situation, too much of digestion is ignored. And again, two people are going to have completely different reactions to different foods. And something I've learned with my functional health practice is we also don't know which foods we're insensitive to. So again, you're not going to get as much in terms of nutrients or energy from foods you're insensitive to. So it's never made sense to me. So I would, whether you want to believe that or not, just start thinking about quality versus quantity. And the truth is, when you have quality food, it's actually very difficult to eat too much of it, because your body is a lot of the problems with the processed food is it's designed in a way to override your satiety, your internal satiety feedback that your body gives you. So when you eat whole processed food or whole unprocessed foods, those signals are uninterrupted, and it will tell you when to stop eating. Your body naturally knows. Whereas when you're eating all the ultra processed stuff, it tricks your body to want to eat more. So that's part of the problem. And it's, you're eating more of bad food. So again, I challenge you to rethink what you think you know about calories. And they didn't even start putting the calorie information on food until I think it was the 90s. And we've done just fine without it before that. We've actually gotten fatter as a country since then. So what does that tell you? And it's really also, again, following the money is also another opportunity for companies to repackage things. Oh, it's only 100 calories, and it's 100 calories of bullshit, but you're going to consume it because you think, it's within my caloric allowance. I could spend a whole hour on this. I'm gonna stop. But focus on quality. Focus on getting enough protein, enough good fats. I won't go over there about carbohydrates. They're not essential, but you do need them. But anyway, calories in, calories out, for me, a myth that needs to be dispelled. I have actually started writing a book about it. I've got about 8 chapters in. I've got about 4 more. So maybe I'll get around to doing that this year and finishing that. And my last one is seed oils, and you hear a lot about this. And even on the Heart Association said it's good for you because it lowers cholesterol. Again, another myth. Really, really not good for you. Highly, highly processed. They have to bleach it because it looks so bad after it's basically oil. It's petroleum. And that's essentially what it is. And they've had to process it so much that it looks rancid and it smells rancid. So they have to bleach it. And then it's so far away from the seeds. I mean, just think about canola. Canola oil was engine lubricant. Would you consume engine lubricant? Would you cook your food in engine lubricant? That's what canola oil is, rebranded. And things like sunflower and corn, so far removed from the plant at this point, there's nothing good left in it. They are very high in unstable omega-6 fats, and you want a good ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fats. It really interferes with that because they're so high in it, and they're so high in this linoleic acid. And we know it drives inflammation. It can actually disrupt the cells on a cellular level, the membranes there. If you ask me, what's the main driver of obesity in this country, it's seed oils, because it disrupts the way your body's able to create energy on that cellular level with the mitochondria. And people eat way too much of this stuff. And if, in terms of health hacks, if you can just remove seed oils, even displacing the energy thing where we just talked about with calories in, calories out, just remove seed oils from your diet. I guarantee you will start having better health outcomes. And it's anecdotal, but I've spoken to many people of this. I've seen many stories of this online. When people stop eating seed oils, they actually don't burn as much in the sun. Take that for what you will. Seed oils are really driving inflammation. They really oxidize easily in the body. So you're just adding to oxidative stress. This damages the fat in the blood, and then that can damage your arteries. So you start getting the idea of, oh, maybe cholesterol is being blamed for what the seed oils did. Maybe that's what's going on. And if you want better choices, my preferred and recommended things to cook in, things like butter, ghee, tallow. If you are vegan or vegetarian, coconut oil, extra virgin, cold pressed. Got to be a bit careful with avocado oil and olive oil because they do become unstable at high temperatures. Coconut oil can too, but it does better than those two. And if you're doing olive oil, skip that. Go straight to the extra virgin, cold press. Look for single source, single farm or single origin, because they do cut extra virgin and even avocado oil. They cut with really rancid olive oil too. So yeah, and again, I could go on for hours about seed oils, but I want to try and keep this brief. I'm already around that 30-minute mark. And if you look at the rise in chronic disease in the US, and it mirrors the rise in the use of seed oils. Until the 60s and 70s, no one was really using them. You got to start thinking, who has been lobbying the Heart Association to say they're good for you? Follow the money. Follow the money. So I'll wrap it up there. Again, I ask everybody to, and if you're still with me, God bless you. Just really challenge yourself and start thinking, do I believe that or do I know that? When you hear information that challenges what you believe, ask yourself, well, okay, do I have that? Do I hold this thought because I believe it or because I know it? It's not overly difficult to read studies. My personal thought is a lot like legal stuff, that a lot of the language is used to confuse people. But now with AI, you could feed it into a ChatGPT, for example, and ask it to translate it for you. But again, you've also got to know what you're looking at, because if it throws out something wrong or misleading, then you might just take that, and now you're just believing again. But it's boring, it's heavy, but health is the most important thing. Our children's health is the most important thing. And I'm not saying this to be on a high horse. I'm not saying this to judge, but I spend a ungodly amount of time researching all of this stuff, and it's sometimes quite painful for me when people challenge me on it, and they do it in an aggressive way, knowing full well that they haven't done the same amount of work that I have to look into all of this. And I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. It happens a lot, and it's happened for years in the fitness space, because all my thoughts on fitness were contrary to. I've been right about a lot of it, most of it. So just appreciate where you're getting information from. Don't just trust it, because as someone who has spent a lot of time, like I said, looking into all of this stuff, it terrifies me how much corruption and deceit there is around health. I feel a calling right now from God, and I don't want to go too religious with all of this, but to speak up, because the health of not just my children, but everybody's children is a risk right now, and we need as many voices as possible to look out for them. So God bless you all. Thank you for listening. And again, just really consider whether you know or whether you believe something to be true. That's all I want to get, or all I want for this podcast. I could have just told you that at the beginning and saved you 30 minutes, but that's what I want. As Tara would say, bye for now.